So, I took my hat off this time because I felt like I'm probably going to end up doing a lot of talking. So I thought this was just a good way, whether I even share it or not, to pass the time, number one, to probably figure some stuff out about myself, and I'm going to explain how and why in this topic, and just sort of get some good content to finally post. Because I've been talking about wanting to do these kinds of things for years, and I just have never done it. So I'm going to do it now. And what I want to talk about right now is self-talk. More so the power of talking to yourself. I know it's said that people who talk to themselves, it's a sign of genius. Now, I don't know if that's something that I've said to myself for a while to make myself feel better about the fact that it's kind of weird that I talk to myself all the time. But I do. I talk to myself like 24/7. If I'm alone and I'm not with people, or sometimes even if people are around, I'm having these little conversations and sidebars with myself, or I'm narrating what I'm doing. And over the years, it's really helped me open up in a lot of different ways. I went to move to Halifax in 2016, and I did it with some goals in mind, and I really wanted to spend some time alone. I used to have a really, really huge fear of being alone. It's a whole other thing I can talk about. But I had a massive fear of being alone and being by myself. And so I decided to move to Halifax because I had some friends that were living there at the time going to university, and I wasn't in school. And I knew that they would be busy. And I knew that I would have a lot of time to myself to think and to conquer that whole feeling of being alone. And then I also had some other projects and goals that I wanted to have lots of time alone, to be forced to do those things, because I'm the type of person, I'm incredibly social, and if there's things to do and be out of the house, I'm going to go off and do them. And that stopped me from reaching a lot of my goals, and that's another thing that I'm working on trying to do. So I went to Halifax, which was great. I got thrown into this schedule with work where I was working 2 to 10:30 every single day, and I would come home after work and I would sit in my room. And I lived with, it was the only time in my life where I've lived with so many people, but yet I felt like I was living alone. I lived with 8 other people. There was 9 of us total in one house. It was a share house where people just rented rooms and kind of came and went in different tenancy agreements and different like leases, I guess, or whatever you want to call it. So there were some people that I was friendly with that I would spend some time with, and then they would come and go, and new people would come in, and yada, yada, yada. The point of it is that I would get home from work shortly after 10:30 because I could walk home, and I would put on my headphones and I would listen to this album. I fell in love with Hozier while I was there, or Hozier, or however the hell you pronounce his name, who knows. And so I would listen to the album that I had downloaded front to back every night, and I would sort of just putter around my room. But a lot of what I did was I sat in front of the mirror, and I know this might sound vain or ridiculous, but I would sit in front of the mirror and I would talk to myself, and I'd be like, hey, how did you feel today went? What were some things that were really negative that you said today, or some negative things that you thought today? And I would think about that, and I would start getting myself on these little rants and these tangents of talking to myself. And it really, really made me dive further and further into myself. And it was so cool to like start talking with like a little bit of a topic of just, hey, how were you today? How did it go? And what do you think you did wrong? And then when I would think about the things I did wrong, or even things I did right, or things that I liked that day, it would get me on these topics, and it would kind of bring up other things from the past and bring up thoughts of the future and whatnot. And I would just sort of sit there and talk to myself for hours. And it was amazing. And it's something that I think everybody should do. You know, not just checking in with yourself being like, hey, what could you have done better? But just checking in with yourself and being like, how do you feel? Like, how do you feel? Like, what are some things that you don't like about yourself? What are some things you love about yourself? Build yourself up. Because in building yourself up, you'll realize all the things you love about yourself, and then you'll shift focus onto those things a little bit more. And as you shift focus onto things that you like about yourself, it impacts your life in a way where you start to be more positive, and more positive to the people around you, and more positive day to day. but then it also allows you to be more easy on yourself when you do talk about negative things that happen, because you know that these are the things that I love about myself, and these are the things that make me feel good every day. And it becomes just a lot easier to talk about the things that are negative as well. And as you talk to yourself more and more, it becomes more comfortable and it becomes more easy, and you realize that you really are the greatest friend you're ever going to have. And you're either going to be, it's another good quote, but you're either your own best friend or your own worst enemy. It helped me become a friend to myself, and more so understand myself a little bit more, and it helped me really conquer that feeling of being alone that I was so terrified with, because I got so much more comfy with just me, and I realized that I don't need anybody else necessarily to build me up. I can do it myself, and I don't need to have these endless conversations with other people where I just unload on them and talk about all this stuff that they may or may not need to know or want to hear, or they should be charging me for. And then I got so much better at doing it just myself, and it led me to a lot more self-love and acceptance. And if you've never tried talking to yourself or having conversations with yourself, start doing it now. Start just something as simple as, hey, how do you think today went? Or just, how are you feeling? And then as the different emotions come up, positive or negative, then you can start to address those things and become better and more whole.